I call the special meeting of the San Juan Unified School District Board of Education to order. The meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recording may capture sounds and images of those attending this meeting. The recording will be posted on the district's website. Board meetings are being held in person in the boardroom at the district office, and the community is welcome to attend. The meeting may also be viewed on the district's YouTube channel, where it is being live streamed. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
I am Pam Costa, Board Vice President. Board President Zima Creason is participating remotely in another room at the district office due to COVID. Because of the difficulties of running the meeting remotely when all other members are present in person, and to ensure a smooth process for this special meeting, she has requested I take over her duties today as president and run this meeting from the dais. Continuing with introductions, to my left is Mr. Ben Avey, Ms. Paula Villasquez, Ms. Tanya Kravchuk, and Mr. Saul Hernandez, board members. To my right is Superintendent Melissa Bassinelli, and to her right is Board Administrative Assistant Stephanie Cunningham. For the record, I would like to announce that this meeting is being conducted pursuant to California Government Code Section 54953B concerning teleconferencing of meetings. Board President Zima Creason is participating in this meeting by speakerphone from Conference Room K at the district office, 3738 Walnut Avenue, Carmichael, California. In accordance with the Ralph M. Brown Act, this location has been identified on the agenda for this meeting. Ms. Creason, I would now like to ask you to respond to the following questions. Are you able to hear our proceedings on this end?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes.
Has the agenda been posted at your location in the district?
Yes.
Is your location such that any member of the public could participate in the public portions of this teleconference meeting from your location?
Yes, but I would not.
But you wouldn't recommend it?
Members,
Members of the board, are you able to hear Ms. Creason?
Yes.
Yes.
Because we are having a meeting with teleconferencing, all actions will be by roll call vote. Before we begin, I'd like to remind the public that tonight is a special meeting of the Board of Education, and public comment is only accepted regarding items that are listed on tonight's agenda. We do appreciate your input and want to hear from you. If you wish to offer a general visitor comment regarding a topic that is not on tonight's agenda, you can offer a comment at a future regular board meeting, which the next one is scheduled for April 11th. Individuals who are attending the meeting in person and would like to offer a public comment on an agenda item, we ask that you complete a speaker request card available at the staff table, and you will be called on at the appropriate time during the agenda. Please note that Board Bylaw 9323 limits visitor comments to 2 minutes per speaker, with no more than 30 minutes per single topic. Time will be extended for any speaker who uses an interpreter. Please note that public comments, including your name, become part of the public record. Let's begin with B1, election of the clerk. And I would like to say something before we start. To the public who are either listening or in attendance, we are not being insensitive to the memory of Stephen Miller, our colleague. We are on a timeline that is by education code that requires us to fill positions. And that's why we are moving quickly in this process. But I do understand that some people may perceive that as being insensitive. We are not. We have deep feelings and have expressed those feelings about the loss of Mr. Miller. And we want the public to know that he was a very valued colleague of ours. So with that, due to the passing of Mr. Miller, the board clerk role is now vacant. At this time, I would ask for nominations for clerk. Ms. Fiascos?
I would like to nominate Mr. Saul Hernandez as clerk.
Is there a
I'd
second?
like to,
Was moved by Ms. Fiascos, seconded by Ms. Creason. Are there any other nominations for clerk? Ms. Kravchuk?
I nominate Ben Avey.
It's been nominated by Ms. Kravchuk for Ben Avey. Is there a second? Is there any discussion before we vote? We are voting on the motion to elect a clerk because of absence of a second. The first motion will be the motion we are voting on, which is Mr. Saul Hernandez to be clerk of the board. All those in favor, and this is a,
No, we do the second one for the most recent.
It wasn't a
I
second.
didn't
There
think there
wasn't
was
a
a
second.
There wasn't a
The
second.
second, okay, thank you, sorry.
it's okay. This is a roll call vote. We are voting on the motion to elect Saul Hernandez as clerk. Mr. Hernandez?
I vote
Yes, you do.
aye.
Ms. Kravchuk?
Aye.
Ms. Fiascos?
Aye.
Mr. Avey?
Aye.
Ms. Creason?
aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion passes unanimously. We are at item B2, process to fill the Area 7 trustee vacancy. Mr. Allen and Ms. Simlick, will you do the honors with your presentation?
Thank you, Vice President Costa, members of the board, Superintendent Bassanelli, and Ms. Cunningham. It is regretful that we have to be here today. So we do thank you for your time and attention to this important matter before us. This is not common for school districts. It does happen, but it's not something that happens every day. So we've worked to come up to speed as quickly as possible. And we're going to walk you through the process that's before you and the choices that you have before you to meet that 60-day timeline that Vice President Costa referred to earlier. So again, the law does require that the board take action within 60 days to fill this vacancy. And you can do that by taking one of two actions. The first is that you can make a provisional appointment. And the second is that you can make that call for a special election. So it is with that 60-day timeframe in mind that we've begun this process. We have spring break next week, which does, of course, weigh into the timeline that we have before us as well. So we want to make sure that we provide you with those options and we can start moving with whichever direction you should choose to take. So first, we want to highlight the special election option for you. When you look at that special election option, the thing, of course, that sticks out to a lot of folks is that cost factor. Because we would be the agency issuing that election and it would not be part of that general election, we do have a larger share or the entire share of the election to cover for the cost. So that has been estimated by the Sacramento County Elections Office at $154,000. You can compare that to what we would normally pay for an Area 7 election of roughly $36,000. So that gives you the comparison between those two election models as far as cost goes in each of those circumstances. The law does say that the election cannot be held within 130 days of the vacancy, but it must be held at the next regularly scheduled election, which this case becomes November 7th after that 130-day timeframe. So if the special election is the route that's chosen, we would be have the seat vacant until the election can be held. And it would be after that election is certified that we would be able to seat somebody from Area 7 to represent those residents on the board. I didn't miss anything. So on the provisional appointment side, There's no direct cost to the district other than what we would spend in advertising and soliciting for applications. So we do want to make sure that we have a robust process for that, that we get the word out so that anybody who's interested knows of the opportunity and would know how to access that opportunity as well. So other than the costs there, we would not have any direct costs to the district. And it does ensure that that seat gets filled by the end of May, because we would have to do that within that 60-day timeframe. We do have that representation for residents of Area 7 by the end of May rather than at the end of November. Also, just to point out the difference as far as reelection on these two different models. If you go with provisional appointment, the person who is then appointed by that provisional appointment is then up for reelection in November of 2024. So that seat in Area 7 comes onto that ballot at that time. If you were to go with the special election, that person who wins that special election actually fills the existing term, so they would go through 2026. The other thing I do want to point out about the provisional appointment is it does require that we form a subcommittee of the board. That subcommittee would be responsible for taking the applications and making sure that anybody who has applied does meet the requirements according to Ed Code and Election Code for being able to hold that office. So you would, as a member of that subcommittee, take the applications, make sure that they're a resident of Area 7 and all those other little elements before we move that on to the full board to decide who's going to be interviewed for the position. Because there are 6 members and we have the 1 vacancy, we would only be able to have 2 members on that subcommittee at this time. So we do want to give you an idea of what a timeline might look like if you go with the provisional appointment. I will give a little caveat to this. There's some play into this. We kind of wanted to make sure we did it well within the 60-day timeframe. There is some play to where we could back it up and add some time to either the application window or the selection window. So that does give some opportunity to make those windows a little bit larger if there's a desire to do that. In essence, once you make this decision, we would immediately begin that process of reaching out to community to let them know of the opportunity and start soliciting those applications. We then have that application period open for folks, and at close of that application period, it's when that subcommittee then comes together and meets. So roughly, we would be looking at, according to what we proposed here, around April 20th for that subcommittee to be coming together, allowing for at least a 2-week period for those application periods. And again, if we wanted to extend either that application or the selection period, we have some leeway to be able to do that and still meet our 60-day timeline. And on this proposed timeline, we're suggesting that a special board meeting on May 2nd would be called, where you would actually do the interview of any candidates that you move forward to interview. And at that time, you would also make a determination of whether you were going to appoint somebody. I do want to highlight for you that if you move forward with the provisional appointment process now, and you get to this special meeting where you are interviewing candidates, at that time you decide, no, we're not going to appoint anybody that we've interviewed. You still have that ability. We can still stop at that point and say, no, we're going to call a special election instead. Or of course, if you've interviewed somebody and you find somebody who you think represents the area well, and who would represent the district well, you can make that appointment and move forward with the appointment. If you do not make the appointment, that means we would come back at the next board meeting and we would make a motion to call that special election. And again, because we've programmed this in, we believe we have enough time to be able to do that. If you go ahead with that appointment, we would then have to do some notices in the local papers. And we would have to, of course, do the oath of office and a nice swearing in ceremony. I do want to highlight for you that once you make that provisional appointment, there is a 30-day window where the voters in trustee area 7 have the ability to file a petition to nullify that appointment. So if 1.5% of the voters in trustee area 7 were to file that petition and that were valid and found valid by the county superintendent, that would nullify the appointment and a special election would be called at that time. So again, just to highlight, if the vacancy, if we don't take that action within 60 days, If we do nothing, if we do not do the special election route, if we do not make an appointment, then it automatically becomes Sacramento County Office of Education's responsibility to order that special election. It's still at that wonderful $154,000 cost, and it is still at that November 7th timeframe. So we still have that gap in board representation, and we still have the cost that we would incur, even though SCOE is making that decision. Both of those pieces. So again, what we're looking for this afternoon is some discussion on which route you would like to go, the provisional appointment or the special election. If you do decide on the provisional appointment, we would need to further discuss your feedback on the application and what we might include on that application. In your packet, there were some questions from CSBA that we might consider. And then we'd also need to identify who would serve on that subcommittee. And then if we do decide on the special election route, we just need to take that vote, and then there would be a lovely form that we need to sign off at the end of the meeting as well.
And I just wanted to layer in some additional information. As we were researching this, I did pull the other superintendents within Sacramento County to see what's been the practices in other LEAs. There are 13 LEAs in Sacramento County. We're one of them, which is LEA is Local Education Agency. Of the districts, 8 districts have had to fill vacancies for a variety of reasons. Of those 8, all of them have done it through provisional appointment. There's currently another district in Sacramento County, Center Unified, that is going through a provisional appointment process right now. So I just wanted to layer that in for the Board of Education.
Thank you. Ms. Rye, are there any visitor comment cards?
There are several visitor comments. We can start with the first, Mona Graham, followed by Tim Schaefer.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I appreciate it. My name's Mona Graham. I am a resident of the San Juan Unified School District. I'm also a concerned citizen. I'm advocating for the special election. I'd like you to give it your sincerest consideration. I believe that it's the only way we can really show the residents, the voters from Citrus Heights, that we have respect for them and respect for their vote, and that their vote counts. They voted for Steve by a very large margin of 44%. And I think that's an important thing to consider, that, you know, I just feel like their vote has to matter. And the way that we tell them it matters is we put it back in front of them to make this decision. I believe it's their decision. So they deserve to have a like-minded trustee to Steve and the decisions that he would make, especially, I think, based on the high percentage of the vote that he did get. And just one little comment, I don't really need all the time, is if you do a subsequent special meeting, maybe consider having it after the parents are off of work so they can also attend. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Mayor Tim Schaefer, followed by Katie Reed.
Thank you very much, Madam President and Vice President and the board members. Pleasure to be here. Unfortunately, under these circumstances, really tough for us. Our community is very impacted by this. And what I would say is I certainly would, as an elected representative, I've run in this particular district, and the voters there are very passionate about their ability to vote. And I wouldn't want you to deprive them of that. So I would really implore you to think about a special election. And if you do decide to go to a provisional appointment, definitely look at somebody who has a similar political. Steve was really middle of the road. He was very moderate, and I would encourage you to select someone. If you go that route, certainly I think that the voters need to be heard, and I would encourage you to consider a special election. Thank you.
Next, we have Katie Reed, followed by Jay Martinez.
I'm Katie Reed. I'm a mom of 3 San Juan students, full-time attorney, and active current board member of the San Juan Parents Association, Leggett, Carnegie, and Bella Vista PTAs, as well as president of the Bella Vista Lacrosse Club and member of the Bella Vista Boosters. I'm supposed to be setting up the snack bar at BV for league games tonight, but your enlightening discussion on Tuesday revealed your collective belief that virtual public comment is unnecessary because if we care, we'll drop everything to be here. So here I am instead of volunteering at one of your schools. I'm confident many other busy parents do not have the privilege and resources to do the same, but reserve additional comments for another day. First and foremost, my deepest sympathy to Mr. Miller's family and friends. I feel strongly, however, that he'd agree with what I'm about to say. He said, my biggest concern is the equitable treatment of schools within Fair Oaks on par with schools in in Citrus Heights, on par with schools in Fair Oaks, Carmichael, and Orangevale. It took our board 20 years after Governor Davis's California Voters' Right Act to agree to shift to by-district representation. That was mandated as Mr. Miller's disenfranchised area has 2 high schools consistently just ranked last in our district. They've been without representation on this board for ages until his election to represent them. Last election, his opponent was publicly endorsed by 3 of 5 board members. Had new trustee Area 7 been represented by appointment instead of election, he would not have been the board member representing District 7. To say that your collective judgment is an effective substitute for a special election is to rewrite history. A special election will cost money, which our district has. Thank you.
Next, we have Jay Martinez, followed by Albert Fox.
Good afternoon, board. Thanks for the privilege to speak today. And would just like to have the board consider a special election to replace Mr. Miller. I think that just due to the last election, I think it was very competitive and we had several community members run for the spot. And I think due to the fact that he did win by the 44%, I think it'd be appropriate to consider the special election. And also if you were to take the provisional route to also consider someone like-minded like Steve as well. And thank you for your consideration on that. And may Mr. Miller rest in peace.
Next, we have Albert Fox.
Good afternoon. My name is Albert Fox, and I live in Citrus Heights. And I am one who supported Steve very much to his election because he was the voice of our city. I believe you all have in front of you, or should, a document that I emailed to you as a board regarding my feelings about a special election. I feel it is the most appropriate and proper way for Citrus Heights residents to be treated at this point in time to select their representative to this board. 20 years without a resident of Citrus Heights is far too long, and their voice was unheard for far too long. And I would like you to seriously consider making sure that that vote is heard again by putting this to special election versus an appointment. Thank you.
And Vice President Costa, that was our final public comment.
Thank you very much. Do any board members have comments? Ms. Viescas?
Go ahead and get us started. And I think just first and foremost, I know every time I've sat up at this dais without Mr. Miller to my right, it's a little bit harder than I ever thought that it would be, and that none of us want to be here having this discussion the way it has come about. I'm going to turn to the presentation first and then make some comments, and I anticipate there'll be discussion. So hopefully this isn't my last go at the mic. But first, one thing I just want to kind of point out from the presentation, Mr. Allen, this is largely on slide 4, which is that Should we go? First, had none of this happened, the seat in Area 7 would be up for election again in 2026, correct? And with what the information that's been laid out this afternoon, should there not be a special election held, but instead we go for the provisional appointment, that would now be off of that kind of regular cycle, special seat 7, and would now be on the every 4-year presidential election cycle. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's absolutely clear for all involved. The piece around the board subcommittee, I know we have not had a lot of time to venture down any road because decisions have not been made and we're just, staff took the time to put together this presentation, but what does that board subcommittee look like and what is its charge? What would its charge be?
So that subcommittee is charged with taking the applications and verifying that they meet the requirements under Ed Code and any other related election codes or pieces that would make you qualify for office. So it is simply to take those applications and make sure that those who have applied are eligible to hold the office and verify that. Once that is done, the board as a whole would select who gets to be interviewed.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. Now it's more of a comment of just kind of where I come, the perspective I bring from to this conversation, and I look forward to listening to my colleagues, but the idea that special election is the best way to hear from voters, having worked in campaigns for a really long time, I know that special elections have a voter turnout of anywhere from 5 to 20%. That's hardly representative of an entire community, whereas a presidential year election in particular has the highest turnout that we ever see in elections, upwards of 80%. So from my perspective, it absolutely is critical that we hear from the community of Citrus Heights. And it wasn't until Mr. Miller joined us on this dais that I realized how he truly was the voice of Citrus Heights. He loved that community dearly. And this board was tremendously stronger because of his leadership. There is no other Steve Miller. Moving forward, our charge, and I believe, is to give the community the best opportunity to send someone. And from my perspective, a participation rate of voters of 80% is a much stronger and more compelling argument and outcome for me and truly represents all of the city of Citrus Heights. And so that's where I come from, preferring to provisionally appoint and have that on the ballot at the next election where there will be robust voter participation. Thanks.
Other board members, Mr. Avey?
Thank you. There's a quote from Winston Churchill. Democracy is the worst form of government, if not for everything else we've ever tried. I studied political science. I've spent the better part of 20 years working in campaign politics. And I think about that quote a lot because democracy is really hard. People in power have to defer to a large group of people that they don't know and not only ask their opinion, but abide by the decisions that they make. But what we found is that by doing that, we're a better country, we're a better community because we let them make the decisions. And so while I hear your point, Ms. Viasquez, I think what I'm also hearing is I've heard from the elected representatives of Citrus Heights. I've heard from community members in Citrus Heights. I represent Citrus Heights, small portion of it, but I represent it. And universally to a T, I have heard them say clearly and unambiguously, we want a special election. They understand the cost. Democracy costs money. They understand, the time. I know that's a later development, but they understand it. There was no caveat to them sharing their opinion with me. they want to choose their own representative. And as a board member, as somebody that represents Citrus Heights, I have to hear that and I have to respond to that. I think we are in a good position as a district, thanks to the fiscal prudence of this board, that we're in a position where we do have $150,000 for a special election. I mean, if you do the math on what it costs for the next election, it's actually closer to about 100,000. And I think that money is well worth a democratic process for a special election in a fairly timely manner, where we would let the people of Citrus Heights have an unbiased choice of a freely elected candidate without an incumbent, where they could pick the person that they felt was best. So, thank you.
Other board members? Ms. Grosjean?
I have two questions regarding your presentation. For the provisional appointment, residents are able to nullify a provisional appointment. Are there certain grounds for that, or that would just be opinion? They just don't like it?
Just a petition saying they wish the provisional appointment to be nullified. And there's a certain number, approximately 500, a little less than 500 people must sign the petition.
500?
A little less than that. It's a percentage of the residents. 1.5%.
Thank you. And then my second question is regarding the timeline. So the fourth bullet on slide 3 says the election can be held not less than 130 days after the decision, but then the election would be held on November 7th. 130 days would be approximately 18 weeks. So that would put us into the beginning of August. Why November and not August?
The election code is very specific that talks about when it can be held, and after a certain period of time, and I can pull up the site, it is, the election code says the first Tuesday or the second Tuesday after the first Monday of November. So it would be November 7th, is the date.
Okay, so the 130 days just speaks to if it happened to be later in the year. So the election couldn't be moved up in November?
The specific code says that you have to be at least 130 days out from the vacancy. And then after that 130 days has passed, you have to schedule it on the next regularly calendared election day. So there are specific days that the state has identified as calendared election days.
Mhm.
The next one after our 130-day window expires happens to be November 7th. So there's not one prior to that.
Perfect, thank you.
And
That
just-
explains.
Sorry, and just to follow up, the last date before that would be the first Tuesday after the first Monday. And so, and that would not apply to our timeline.
It would be too early. And if we were to do a provisional appointment and then the city of Citrus Heights ended up getting the petition and nullified, would we have a different timeline or would still be November? I think you went over this. I just want to be clear in my mind that it's no. Okay. This is difficult for me, particularly as we're approaching bargaining and negotiations, and having done the limited amount of site visits that I have done, but quite a bit already, just to see how schools are struggling. You know, we need to put money into a lot of places in school. And it would be lovely to give people raises or hire instructional aides or other things. So I don't want to spend the money, you know, just as a mom. But on the other hand, I feel like we're so early in the term, and the city of Citrus Heights has been so vocal in saying that this is what they want and this is their representative. I am more in the camp of allowing the voice of Citrus Heights to be, I don't know if there's a winner here, but I would cater to their opinion right now. So I'm on the fence of special election, on the side of special election.
Mr. Hernandez or Ms.
I'll go. Thank you to my colleagues. I appreciate your comments and your your thought out reasoning. I too am on the fence, Ms. Krevchek, and here's the reason why. But first and foremost, let me say this, regardless if my personal opinion is that if I going to support a candidate, which would be provisional, because that person for me would be very Steve Miller-like. Absolutely, no questions. He would be, that's the criteria, the bar that I would set to support that person. And if there was not a candidate, in my opinion, I would not support that candidate. 100% I would not. So if that were the case, that it could be very likely that if we went provisional, that, we went 3-3, we would go to that special election anyway. I do like the fact that this, if we went provisional, the city of Citrus Heights could petition and again, have a special election as well. I too do not like the fact that we flipped the bill, $154,000 for this election if we went that route. It's a pretty common practice for districts to go on an appointment basis. The city of Citrus Heights, when Mr. Miller was appointed or put in the city council for the very first time, was put in by appointment. And he served, I believe, about a year. And after that, he, of course, sought election and won that seat as well. When Mr. Mel Turner passed away, I believe that city of Citrus Heights also appointed somebody to replace the late Mr. Mel Turner. So it's pretty common for boards, city councils to seek that appointment basis. But I do understand and I appreciate the voice of Citrus Heights to wanting a person that represents the way they voted. And I absolutely think they have that right to do so. And so for me, again, I'm on the fence right now. I'm curious to hear what my colleagues have to say. But if we were to go to appointment, rest assured, if that person does not fulfill the bar of Mr. Miller, I will not support that candidate.
I thought I saw your light. Ms. Creasom.
Yeah, I have a couple of notes. One, I just wanted to by saying there were, I'm getting some feedback. Can everyone hear me okay though?
Yes.
Okay. Going back to the slide with the provisional timeline, I would like to discuss that for Thursday. I just want to put that on record. Also, should we go provisional, also have some thoughts and concerns with some of the wording of the questions, that should we go down that. Regarding appointment first, provisional appointment, special election, I do have significant concerns about the seat being vacant through November. There's a lot going on, and we really do need that way to get out. I think that the open application for a provisional appointment will allow many more members of the community to, number one, to apply, but also because it's my understanding that the interviews, it's all public meeting, there's public comment. It would take one more time to be a part of the process, not an election per se. I think that it can be done in a way that gives more voice to the Citrus Heights. Also, provision would be pretty short term, 24 instead of 26, and so it'll be on the ballot again relatively quickly. Another thought that I have is, we're in one point, we're not choosing just what process we would use, right? So I feel that we owe it to the kids to try to get their voice represented sooner than later going on. And in the process, interviewing, we have diverse with our members, and all of us would have to vote, or not all of us, but have to vote for an individual to. So I think that opportunity for a collective decision person, there's not an already named. There's a whole lot of process. There's a lot of the board. Again, there'd be a lot of room for public input and application, which I think is a positive. So I think what I'll leave it at is we owe it to the community to decide if somebody sooner than later, if I'm understanding correctly, that if we can't, that gets the majority vote, it's election anyway, that timeframe when it be adopted. So to me, it seems that paying for a provision get to a majority vote, it's worth the time it'll take. I know it'll take additional effort instead of just saying, let's just pick election, but I think it's worth that time to see if we can get there. And if it gets there and it goes to special election, but it seems to me that we should try. And that concludes my notes.
Thank you. I actually spent all of last night thinking about this. I haven't slept. I have really pondered. I really value the idea of voters making a choice, but I value that in the sense of in an election, in a presidential year. I think that would allow for the most voters to participate, and I think it would allow for the longest term. I think there are some protections with the provisional appointment. First of all, there's the protection that the board has to unanimously select a candidate, not unanimously, but by majority has to select a candidate. So if members of the board did not feel that a candidate met the high standards that Mr. Miller set, then definitely, I know I would vote against a candidate that didn't meet what Mr. Miller brought to the table. That is first and foremost in my mind. And so that's a protection, number one. The second protection is if the public in Citrus Heights, the voting public of Citrus Heights thought that we made a bad decision, they still have the right to call for a special election. So I think there are safety nets there. Like you, Ms. Kravchuk, I'm not a mom. Well, I am a mom still, but he's a little older. But I am a grandma, and I do worry about how much things cost. And so I just asked, what could $154,000 purchase? And I want to list some of these things to you because I think it will really resonate. A teacher, a counselor, a nurse, a librarian for a school, 3 instructional assistants or BIAs, 3 campus monitors, at least 2 safety specialists, approximately 6,900 additional recreation aid hours for elementary K-8 schools, which would result in approximately 1,100 additional 6-hour days for elementary and K-8 schools. Between 35,000 and 40,000 books for elementary school classrooms, libraries. Over 300 San Juan Unified student scholarships to Camp Winters. Science consumables to do labs and investigations. It would cover the cost of consumable science materials for an entire year in grades TK5. It would cover the cost of consumable science materials for 2 years in grades 6 through 12. It would be a bus or 3 vans to transport students. So I don't discount the fact that we have the $154,000, but when I think about what we could do with that $154,000 for the students of San Juan, it really troubles me. I believe that if you asked each of us to write down the qualities that Mr. Miller brought to this board that we're looking for in a fellow board member joining us, that I think our lists would be very similar. I think he modeled what he really believed about Citrus Heights, about public education, about students. And I believe that we could provisionally appoint a candidate that would serve until 2024, at which time then there would be an election that would last for 4 years. I think that it's not that it's not a good use of money. It's just, I think that there are other ways to use the money that would benefit our kids. So with that, in my opinion, and I know other people are going to want to speak again, and I see Ms. Creason's lights on. I am, after much thought, thinking about provisional appointment. So I will call on Mr. Avey and then Ms. Creason.
Oh, go ahead.
No, thank you for that. I do appreciate what that money would pay for, right? Because budgets are about values, right? We express our budgets and values. But one of our other stated values is voice and hearing people's voice. And right now, what I'm hearing from the community is that they want a special election. That's what they have told us overwhelmingly in this short period of time. And not just, in addition to citizens, it's their elected leaders. The people who have been elected to be the voice of the people are telling us they want a special election. And this is coming from the city of Citrus Heights, which most recently voted to create a special committee to form their own school district. And if you listen to that conversation, the entire conversation was predicated on the fact that they don't have a voice, that consistently year over year over year for decades, Citrus Heights has been ignored. And the one retort to that comment was, we elected Steve Miller. We have a person that we chose to be our voice on that dais. That was the only rebuttal. It was, give it a little bit of time because the person we chose is now up there and can advocate for us. And I feel like in terms of a provisional appointment, and this goes back to my comment on democracy, sometimes democracy isn't rational. It goes back on what the obvious choice might be, because you have to do what's best for the people, not necessarily what's best for the institution. So I think that while we value that list of things that you shared, because we value every one of them, right? And every school could use one of those. I think if we're true to the value of hearing voice from the community, we have to consider the voice that we've already heard and allow the community to vote in a special election without a provisional appointment.
Ms. Creason?
I don't know why my light was on, but I do have a follow-up. But just a heads up, I don't know how I'm live. I do just want to note that I too very much value voice, and I very much, everyone that was able to comment, we received some emails and some public comment prior to our meeting, folks in the room as well. I also think that a lot more people that would like to have us in this. I think we need a broader net of ways to better guide this, which, you know, if they're really just stand behind my original thing, that provisional appointment process will allow for that. It gives people more time to show up and say what they want. This was so fast, so on the tight, you know, deadline, but all this is happening very, very. And I don't see how the trying the provisional appointment process would impede voice. Because again, it doesn't back us into a corner. That's the only way we go with can't. I think provisional, but going that way just leaves more time for people to be involved in the making. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fiescas?
Thank you. And I really appreciated hearing from my colleagues. And in my initial comments, I actually didn't bring up money. And that's not because I don't think $154,000 is significant. I do. Thank you, Ms. Costa, for itemizing the numerous things that can be done with that. And that being said, Mr. Avey, I think oftentimes we're actually more in agreement than not, and we just don't agree on how to get there. But you made the comment that $154,000 is, or something similar to $154,000 is a small price to pay for a democratic voice. I agree. I don't think that's what we get in a special election. I fundamentally do not, because special election participation is so incredibly low, particularly on the timeline that we have. So I just wanted to make that note. I fundamentally believe that the most democratic process moving forward is to place this seat on a presidential year ballot election and make sure that there is representation in the meantime through the provisional appointment process. And I also wanted to thank Mr. Hernandez as well for very diplomatically pointing out that in the last 2 opportunities that the city of Citrus Heights had to fill a seat, they've gone through an appointment process. I find that compelling. Believe people by the actions that they take. I don't think any of them would like the accusation that they were not listening to the voices of their community. So for that, I still am strongly in the provisional appointment process camp. And given that this is an action item, and if it's the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with a provisional appointment for the vacancy in seat 7.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the process to fill the Area 7 trustee vacancy by provisional appointment.
You want to do that before other people are gonna comment, or?
I need to look at the rules because I think that
Once you make a
after we have a motion, now is when we need Mr. Miller, who is the king of.
I move to offer a substitute motion to fill the vacancy in trustee area 7 through a special election.
Is there a second to that motion?
I have a qualifier or do I just make it?
I think it'd be to offer a friendly amendment.
Are you offering a friendly amendment to?
No amendment. I second the motion.
It's been,
Have comments, that's all, but the motion stands.
okay, I am going to turn to you since you have pulled all of the rules. Can people still make comment or do we need to vote now? And I know we vote on the second motion.
You can continue discussion.
We
but-
can-
But when you do call for the vote, you go the last motion made.
No, I knew that, but we can or cannot continue. We can continue. Then Ms. Kravchuk, the floor is yours.
I haven't figured out how to articulate this, but some of the thoughts that are swimming around in my head center around what Ms. Creason said about casting a wider net and just the conversation that we had at this week at the previous board meeting regarding virtual comment. And at that time, my colleague, Mr. Avey, presented an option that would cast a wider net for us to hear more voice. So we would have more input into the way that we govern. And I still see both sides. I still see how there are pluses and minuses to both. But in thinking of that, of really what is the definition? If this is an argument of definition, how do we cast the wider net? If we make the decision of when that's appropriate or how we do it, we're still limiting it in some way. And I understand that the counter argument could be the same. But at this point, the voices that have shown up, that have submitted the written comment. Going back to the conversation that we had a few days ago, they're the ones who cared enough to show up and say something. Then if we're going off of that, then I think their voice has spoken. So that is why I seconded Mr. Avy's motion for a special election.
Are there any other comments? Mr. Hernandez?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
No, wait. There we go.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion. That's what's great about boards in America, that we can discuss, have different points of view, and respectfully debate. That's what it's all about. So I will go and say that when we went from five trustees to 7, I was one of those who was trying to explain that I felt that 5 was doing the job. But at the time, there was a pretty big contingent from Citrus Heights that, as Mr. Avey said, that they wanted a trustee in Citrus Heights. And it was very strong. It was a very strong voice. So I supported that at that point and realized that, the voice is more important in my opinion. I think today, if we were going by the voice that I've received so far, I agree with Mr. Avey and Mr. Krepchik that people of Citrus Heights would like a special election. My only thing to Ms. Vasquez is that it may be true that more people vote on the presidential election, but it's still their vote. And meaning they would have the ability to show up as they see fit and vote who they see fit. And so that's not that big of a point for me personally. And so that being said, here's what I think from hearing my colleagues. I think it's very likely that eventually we would get to a special election anyway. I really do think that. And so that being the case, I wonder if my friend Steve were here and it was a 3-3 vote. I wonder how he would go in this discussion on this agenda item. And my heart tells me that he would want a special election for the people of Citrus Heights. That's all I want to say.
I keep thinking about if we do a special election, we won't have a representative from Citrus Heights until end of November, which is 8 months away. So the city of Citrus Heights does not have a representative on the dais for all that period of time, nor does the board have an additional member on the board. That troubles me. I think that's a long time. If we do the provisional appointment, and what I heard from people tonight was their preference was a special election, or if the board decided to do a provisional appointment, to find a like-minded person to Steve. I heard that over and over and over again. Almost every person, not every, but almost every person said, my preference would be a special election, but if you do provisional, please make sure it's a like-minded person to Steve. I simply can't believe that this board would not be able to find a candidate in the interview process that we can agree upon that would be representative of someone like Steve. I think we got to know him well enough in this period of time to know that. And then we have a representative on the board by May to represent Citrus Heights. Otherwise, we are waiting until the end of November and doing the special election. For me, it still makes sense to do, at least to make the attempt to do an appointment. And then if we don't succeed, there is still time to do the special election. We haven't harmed anybody in the process by doing that. Mr. Avey?
No, I was turning it off.
Oh, okay. Ms. Creason, are you trying to speak or? The
No,
light,
I'm not.
no?
Nope.
Okay. Are there any more comments from the board? We will be doing a roll call vote on the motion from Mr. Avey with the second by Ms. Krofchak to hold a special election for the Area 7 trustee vacancy. Mr. Hernandez,
Aye.
Ms. Krofchak,
Aye.
Ms. Fiasquez,
No.
Mr. Avey,
Aye.
Ms. Creason.
No.
I vote no. We are at a 3-3 at this point. For the first motion, which was moved by Ms. Viasquez and seconded by Ms. Creason, roll call vote to have a provisional appointment to Area 7 trustee vacancy. Mr. Hernandez,
No.
Ms. Kravchuk,
No.
Ms. Viasquez,
Aye.
Mr. Avey,
No.
Ms. Creason,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So we have 3-3 again. Does the board believe that more discussion would help with resolving this issue? Mr. Hernandez?
Could we get counsel? What happens if we stay at the 3-3 both ways?
Neither motion has passed, so after the 60 days, the county office will hold a special election or call for a special election.
November.
Yes.
Could you say that again?
The
Could you
county-
say it again?
The county office will call for a special election after the 60-day time period that we will be responsible for paying for. And that will be in November, the November 7th date.
Is that the will of the board? Or do we need more time for discussion?
If I may,
Pardon?
may I speak?
Yes, please, Ms. Creason.
Sorry, I can't see you. Apologize. Although I would have preferred a provisional appointment, I also don't want to hold up the process, and I don't believe this is so weak. I think that handle this locally. Absolutely support further discussion if board members feel more dialogue could, influence the change. From what I've heard, it doesn't sound like that's going to happen for us. So I'm open to, I don't know the correct language, but promotion, I'll just like that for special election. Because again, I don't want to hold up as we have to make, I to make a decision. So if it's forward one way or the other, and I don't believe it needs. I'm not offering the motion, but should it be again, I'd appreciate that.
Mr. Avey, you turned on your light.
I'd like to make a motion to fill the vacancy in Area 7 through a special election.
Mr. Avey has made the motion to fill the vacancy in Area 7 by special election.
I second that motion.
It's been seconded by Ms. Kravchuk. We will take a roll call vote. Mr. Hernandez,
Aye.
Ms. Kravchuk,
Aye.
Ms. Fiascas,
Aye.
Mr. Aby,
Aye.
Ms. Creason.
Aye.
I will concur with my colleagues and vote aye. The motion passes. That was our final item for today. There being no further business, we are adjourned.